What? I don't give a shit if you buy it. I don't give a shit if I lose everything. I don't care about any of that. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's the message. Do what you want to do. Let the fucking market win.
In my hand, and I ain't even leave my house with the plan. Baby girl living in, I don't need a man, but I'm a drunk text my ex, I'm better than your new girl. You know that I'm out this world. We're never matter cause I am superb. You heard that I'm styling on these girls. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty, but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Can we do it again? Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty, but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy. And I don't know if they told you, but there's nothing you can say to make me feel the type of way. I'm pretty, I'm smart, I got my pay. So baby, I own my mess so I ain't got dirt. So go tell your boy cause he needs to get hurt. In my hand, and I ain't even leave my house with the plan. Baby girl living in, I don't need a man, but I'm a drunk text my ex, I'm better than your new girl. You know that I'm out this world. We're never matter cause I am superb. You heard that I'm styling on these girls. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy.
What? I don't give a shit if you buy it. I don't give a shit if I lose everything. I don't care about any of that. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's the message. Do what you want to do. Let the fucking market win.
What do you know about Bitcoin? They'll tell you it's about digital gold, storing value, or some shit about sound money. You won't actually be able to use it for anything useful. It's now become a settlement system for experimental banking tech called Lightning Network. But you want to know what it's really about? What do you see? A get-rich-quick scheme enabling you to finally get that dream Lambo? I see lightning fast, reliable, and inexpensive payments. I see financial sovereignty beyond the reach of any central bank, company, or government. That's what this technology had already enabled for anyone in the world and what ultimately gave it value. But that was before a bunch of technocrats captured its development and branding. Blockstream perverted Bitcoin to further their parasitic sidechains and generate a profit for their investors. Bitcoin Cash is the last bastion of hope that continues to pursue the founding goals of Bitcoin by improving and extending its protocol. Over 2 billion people globally have no access to modern financial systems, while many more are trying to break free from the tyranny of their own government. With Bitcoin Cash, they have access to a next-generation payment system at their fingertips, one that doesn't require sacrificing liberties to leverage its game-changing properties. In the real world and online, it's enabling commerce and micropayments unlike anything we've ever seen before. All this without merchants exposing themselves to fraud or chargebacks. And that's what Bitcoin is really all about. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Anybody who tells you otherwise is either in on the deception or stupid.
All right, welcome to CoinSpice Live. I'm your host, Peter Ryan. We got a great show for tonight. Our headline interviews with Chris DeRose and Josh Davis. They're going to be dissecting crypto culture, analyzing, satirizing, and just observing. Just some good old observational humor. We are also going to hear the daily mempool report from Mike in Space, the best weekly update on all the valid information that you need to know to interact on your favorite blockchain. We're also going to be exploring a couple topics, spicy takes, as well as our normal Twitter tirades. We got a few other cameos that will be making their way onto the show. Hopefully we'll have a special guest at the end. We'll see. We've been trying to get him on for a little while now, Justin Sun. We'll see if he gets here. But it's an awesome show. Stay tuned. A little housekeeping before we start. Number one, make sure to smash that subscribe button, like us, share us, tweet us, CoinSpice, so you can not only get this show, but all the great videos we got coming out. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, make sure to follow us on Telegram, and make sure to sign up to our new newsletter and get all those spicy emails. If you want to interact with the show, jump in the chat right now. You can see it over there. Guys, can I get some spice? Can I get some spice in the chat that's appearing? So you got that over there. And if you want to get even more interactive, go to the link right below me. You can find in the description, tipbitcoin.cash. You can send us some Bitcoin and it can appear right above my head, little message, show the show what you want to talk about, as well as you can appear in the leaderboard right beside me. So check those out. Make sure to go into the description, see what's going on there, all of our relevant links. And let's begin, shall we? All right. So first things first, spicy take. There's been, I think, this perhaps whirling topic going around of development, funding, how valuable is it? It seems that it's popping up in various camps, and it's important to maybe explore, how do these decentralized blockchains actually think about their development in terms of not and the technicals around it, but just the economics. How do you actually go and create a system that isn't centralized, that isn't biased, that has good incentives in place, and that still fosters coordinated development. And maybe that's the best word to describe here. Not centralized, but coordinated. And we've seen a few outgrowths of how this should be. We've seen with BTC being the biggest blockchain, it seems like one way to go about it is a company can hire in-house devs that have an arrangement to work on a protocol, and there can be sort of a back and forth, and there can be a emphasis that there is sort of a goodwill, a industry-wide externality that's being sort of given out here, and that the specific company actually gets, they do get value from that externality by having those developers in-house, being kind of close to the source, as well as just being ones that build on top of that protocol. So that's one model to think about, where you have developers in a specific company that have sort of an altruistic relationship with the industry that provide coding and positive externalities. Another way to think about it is kind of voluntary individual or collective donation. So devs can join a foundation together, or individually they can solicit donations from the public. They can solicit donations from large institutions in the space, exchanges, miners. They can kind of come together with some sort of agreement to say, you donate to us, we'll show you our roadmap, and we all benefit here that, as miners, as big businesses in the space, you will have developers working on the code that you're prioritizing, and we have money coming in from people that believe in the project. So that's one model. So we've just described in-house development. We just described donations. Those are the things that are going around. I guess what you could suggest is something a little bit different from that last version was a foundation that sits in the middle. So you actually have developers not actually managing the direct relationship to the donations or funds that actually come in. And so you have three entities here. You have either individuals or businesses donating. You have the fund manager that is soliciting and also deciding where to disperse the capital. And then you have the developers that are then soliciting that foundation or fund manager for the dollars. And so what actually happens there is the economics works out so that the developers can just focus on individual coding, what their comparative advantage is. But what also ends up happening is that the foundation that sits in between, they have the ability to now not just rely on one developer class. They can find new developers. They can have a better negotiating parameters when it comes to figuring out the roadmap between a developer and how that aligns with the businesses, and be sort of a third party between those two. So I guess these are three main models that are interesting to think about, of how, again, we coordinate, not centralize development in this space. There's definitely harder things in the weeds and the details to work out there. For instance, how do you incentivize developers to continue pushing forward on the code versus getting into the liquid crypto markets and perhaps exiting? Nobody wants that. Maybe one of these mechanisms could be whether it's a company specifically, or it's a foundation, or the developer individually agrees to this. Funds in that native cryptocurrency can be locked in some sort of agreement, a contract of trust that will be released at a certain date based on certain parameters. Now, private companies do this with equity, and how that gets dispersed over time, and how certain illiquidity incentivizes people to stay long term, and how certain early exits can then result in clawing back of equity to the original owner. So these are ways perhaps to think about, well, how do we actually incentivize everybody? So there's long-term commitment, that everyone's best economic profit motive is aligned, and that the relevant parties are all distributed so that they all make sense. So these are things to think about. I would love to hear too, in the chat, what are you guys thinking? What do you think are interesting models to do this funding? What coins do you think are getting it right? Ethereum is one of also these large institutions when it comes to the crypto industry that may have just figured out how to get funds into development. They have the Ethereum Foundation. They also have Consensus, which is a more centralized private organization that has millions of dollars, and they support in-house development and making applications. They also help out projects that are external to them and helping them get off the ground. So there's a spectrum of altruistic to specific company-aligned strategies here to go industry-wide. So definitely I want to hear what you guys are thinking in the chat. I want to jump over now to a relevant tweet to what I was just discussing here. And so that is right here. We have Bram Cohen. He is Big Kahuna at Chia.net, previously created BitTorrent. And he came out with a little statement here talking about Bitcoin isn't outperforming altcoins because of sound money or network effects. It's outperforming because it has a core development group who are out executing the competition. Please thank them. So this got an interesting amount of likes and retweets, definitely spreading around. What was pretty interesting was that this was touching on that fact that development is super important. He's bringing this out to say, hey, we got to think about funding development, because ultimately the technology at the heart of this is what drives prices, what brings investors in, and this is super important. Now, I want to contrast this with a very interesting reply to this tweet. So he's talking about specifically Bitcoin, BTC, Bitcoin Core. And it's really interesting that one of the replies happens to be Peter Woolley, who is if I could get this, a worker at Blockstream, but also one of the lead Bitcoin Core developers. And he actually says, I don't believe that's true. At least not over the short to medium term. My somewhat pessimistic observation is that the price is almost entirely uncorrelated with technology. How about that? How about that indeed? So we have one of the, if not, not just lead of BTC, but with all of the derivative works that are out there in this industry of code bases that share work, Peter Woolley is, counter signaling the idea that the technology, the underlying development has a short to medium term effect on the price. So what is going on here? Is technology that worth it? Is marketing perhaps more worth it in the end to actually disperse capital towards? Another example we can kind of pull out is the whole LTC, I wouldn't say scandal, but sort of revelation that it seems like there's a real lack of development, whether you look at just sort of the GitHub data and sort of monitor what is the commit history, what is going on there, as well as the qualitative chat logs that are getting revealed, and Charlie Lee and other people in there talking about how it's disappointing what's going on there, funding is an issue, yada, yada, yada. And so again, we see this pimple pop up of, what is important? What about, funding directly this software development? But then you look at LTC and they have this lack of it, but also LTC has been one of the most notable for using marketing dollars, for, branding, for, getting their name out there, using celebrity endorsements, all this type of stuff. So, this is where it actually comes into this conversation of, we all probably assume that development is super important on the protocol. We all assume that there needs to somehow be capital deployed to it, and there needs to be a way, again, not to centralize that capital, and not the development, but also to coordinate it, because we can't live in sort of a realm of discoordination. I believe that's probably not exactly how a market works. A market is coordinated. So to stay within that realm of libertarianism and Austrian economic jargon. But then again, we're looking at one of the lead spokesmen for the archetype of the software developer, Peter Woolley, talking about how it's probably not that impactful on price. And if ultimately price is what something everybody cares about, what is doing that? And so should people think about, well, maybe there needs to be marketing entities, maybe there needs to be business development entities that share some of a staple within the industry that software developers do, and that sort of foundations perhaps need to arise that kind of end up figuring out, okay, where is the allocation for marketing, where's the allocation for business development, where's the allocation for protocol and infrastructure. So these are all important questions. It's really hard to figure out. Again, various examples have been BTC with Blockstream and in-house developers providing positive externalities to the entire industry. Ethereum has the Ethereum Foundation, which is sort of an organization that is cross company-wide and brings in a lot of new people and has a lot of more altruistic motives as well there, as well as Consensus being a very centralized company that has a lot of support within it and outside of it. There is also other coins that are out there that are trying to figure out this problem. Dash has a certain structure built in with transactions that helps bring money into a treasury that ends up dispersing that in a way that they see fit, and this kind of solves some of that issues. You have other coins like we can get into, we can go on for days about this, but those examples are there that bring to light this issue. So definitely comment in the chat. What are your thoughts? Definitely go on Twitter. tag at CoinSpice, talk about, how do we solve funding in crypto? What are the business models? What are the incentive structures that we need? And so with that being said, we're going to move on, guys. We're going to move on to everyone's favorite segment, the Daily Mempool Report.
It's the Daily Mempool Report.
Hey kids! Welcome to the Daily Mempool Report! Remember, it's never too early to learn about the fee market! Now let's see what's happening in the news. Uh-oh! Looks like Bitfinex printed another 2 billion tether! You like that one, Vin? F this.
All right. Thank you, Mike in Space. Always very informative, and always very engaging. Also, his crew is fantastic. It's the best that it's the best crew that Tether can buy. So kudos to them. So moving on, we're gonna get into a little review of Twitter, seeing what's going on there, guys. Little Twitter tirades. But number one, I want to let everybody know, at the end of the show, we are nominating the dankest meme of the week, and you have a chance to be that dankest meme. If you go to this tweet, I threw it in the chat room. You can find it if you go to CoinSpice at Twitter. If you go to me at _Peter Ryan, you can find this tweet. If you comment in there and you get a dank meme that is just so dank I can't resist, we're going to show you at the end of the show, and we will reveal you as the top contender, the Chad, the Alpha, the big Pumbaa of dank memes. So please check that out. Get on Twitter. Go there for sure. Also, while we're here, jumping over to CoinSpice. Hey guys, CoinSpice just updated its website. How do you like that? CoinSpice.io, your home for spicy things on the internet. Nice, fresh, clean, new looking website. Definitely go there. Check it out. Check out all the great articles. One thing I want to point out, guys, a little promo for us. There's been a lot of news about Hong Kong, a lot about what's happening, the protests, China coming in, what is the United States doing, the trade war. CoinSpice is bringing you information you can't get anywhere else. They're not bringing you armchair punditry about TA and price. They're bringing you on-the-ground interviews with people that are there, that are interacting with these issues and that feel it on a visceral level. See that? That's the street of Hong Kong, and that's a person that's on the ground. So what I want to advertise you to do is go to this podcast on coinspice.io. Our man, C. Edward Kelso, editor-in-chief, interviewed a Hong Kong Bitcoiner going by the name of Joey. And they talked all about the intersection of Bitcoin, crypto, freedom, and the Hong Kong protest in China. So awesome podcast. Check it out. You cannot get this information anywhere else. Show us some love, and definitely tweet it out and share your take on, how Bitcoin intersects to Hong Kong protests. So yeah, so coming back, guys. I want to talk about something as well that kind of made its way. It was an in real life event, but it's made its way to Twitter. talking about the Soho Forum debate series that goes on in New York City. It's a libertarian-oriented debate series that actually brings in a few lefty people here and there and some mainstream folks to just kind of go through various issues, gun ownership, Second Amendment, free speech, economic, things no one cares about. All this types of stuff. It's run by Gene Epstein, and actually a fellow crypto traveler, Naomi Brockwell, is a frequent host. And they had an interesting debate the other night talking about Bitcoin. They had Saifedean Ammous, everyone's favorite, I don't know if religious fanatic is the right term, but it feels right, of BTC maximalism. He was over there debating George Selgin, a very prominent, sort of laid back, but, I say laid back in the terms of, Bitcoin maximalism when it comes to, talking about money, talking about the economics, the theories behind it. And they debated about, is Bitcoin a reasonable money for countries to use? And funny enough, Saifedean actually, we'll get to that later. We'll get to that part later. But what I want to do is look at this one tweet. So here's a tweet that made it out of that debate, that live event. The notion that we are going to judge cryptocurrency by the speed of transaction, I think, is misplaced. The point is reliability, Saifedean Ammous. And now, guys, I wanna go to our correspondent, Mr. Pokst. I wanna Pokst. Can you get us a reaction to that tweet, please? Thank you, Pokst. So, guys, another classic example of, sort of this just sort of rewriting the concept, the mythology, the design of what Bitcoin is, and that it's not about the speed of transactions. And ultimately what the heart of this tweet is getting at, and the statement Saifedean often makes, is that cryptocurrencies are not about payments. They're not about, using it to buy coffee, God forbid. They're not about, bringing economic freedom to people to use on an individual basis. For him, it's all about how do we, create fees to such of a high extent that it basically requires about, let's say, 1,000 sort of central bank-like entities to actually coordinate the settlement layer process of the base chain on Bitcoin. And then you need all of these convoluted schemes that are second layers, third layers on top that are not within the Bitcoin design to actually do some simulacrum of payments. So this is pretty unsettling that you have somebody going out into the normie world, or the libertarian normie world for that matter, and kind of giving a distorted view of what the concept of Bitcoin is. And I think you cannot relinquish that concept from payments, as well as the entire idea behind the store of value, behind, what makes it a better form of money, in a sense. So that's what's going on Twitter, guys. And once again, make sure go to tipbitcoin.cash. You can find the link in the description. You can find it right there below me. Send us some Bitcoin. Use Bitcoin, because everyone likes to use Bitcoin. Your message can pop up right there. Everybody can see it, see what you're thinking, what you want to put forth. You do that. You can also pop up in the leaderboard, show that, hey, I use Bitcoin. Look at me. And as we move forward into the next segment, I'm sure that it'd be great to sort of have conversations flowing back and forth, because the next segment is our interview with Chris DeRose, the host of Bitcoin Uncensored and the Socrates pseudo-like philosopher of crypto Twitter, as well as Joshua Davis, otherwise known as @CarbonBased on Twitter, who is quite the cataloger, quite the satirizer of all the various crypto idiosyncrasies and problematic behavior that goes on that needs to be called out. So we brought them on. Seems like a good fit, sort of somebody that has been around the space for definitely a while in terms of publicly appearing, as well as Josh, that seems to have kind of popped up as of late recently. See what they have to talk about together, see what they think about the culture of crypto, the anthropology. If they were the Jane Goodalls observing the gorillas that we all are in this little microcosm, what are their comments? What do they take away? And so that's what we got going on, guys. Make sure, again, go in the chat, throw your spicy comments in there. If you want to get your stuff more highlighted, go to tipbitcoin.cash and you can have your comment appear right above my head and show everybody what you got to work with. So we are now moving on into that interview. Here we go. All right. Welcome. We are here with Chris DeRose and Josh Davis, otherwise known as Carbon Based on Twitter. And we're together right now to talk about crypto culture, talking about all the people in the space, what they've been doing historically, what's the contemporary version of that, and how this industry has transformed, and how the human elements sort of shape the technical elements of everything that's going on. So I want to introduce both guests right now. And so why don't each of you just give a little intro to yourself and your kind of general summary and observation of the industry. So Chris,
what's up, party people? Yeah, that's I'll start the dialogue there. My name is Chris DeRose. I am a old-timey Bitcoiner. I've been in the space since in public since 2013, and I was in it for a few years prior than that. I ran the Bitcoin Uncensored podcast, at times with a co-host, at times without, and I've seen a lot of craziness and amazement here in the space. And I think that was all you asked of me. What was the other thing I'm supposed to talk about?
Just sort of, what's your state of the Bitcoin culture synopsis?
Yeah, I mean, the state of Bitcoin culture I could probably talk about for the entirety of the show, so I won't do that. But like the synopsis would probably be,
we'll get there.
Yes. I do think we're in a bubble, a manic bubble. I think that a lot of the trends in the space mirror the national trends, and it kind of trickles down, and we sort of emulate them to a significant degree. I think that most of the markets are in a bubble. I'm often labeled a bear, and I don't see it that way. I like to think of myself as somebody who believes in the cause enough to condemn bits and pieces of it without condemning the whole, or even just to talk about things that nobody else wants to talk about, which is an increasingly difficult thing to do, which probably reflects some anxieties in the space more so than anything else. That would probably be my assessment of a lot of what I'm seeing even right now.
Great. And Josh, why don't you go?
Sure. I'm Joshua Davis. I'm known as Carbon Based online. I was involved with Bitcoin very early in 2011, but not publicly until 2017. I didn't use social media at the time that I was involved. So pretty much I was using Bitcoin and just reading the articles and existing in this bubble, completely unaware of how horrible the people in the space were. And I was completely taken aback once I started getting involved with social media and saw what these people were like. But 2017, I kind of got very disinterested. I'm, again, a little less bearish now than I was last year. I'm a huge believer in the technology. I'm very disgusted by the people in the space. That would be a synopsis. And I greatly enjoy finding their horrible takes and pointing it out to everyone else who's smart enough to listen.
Great. And then I guess to jump off that, can you recall what was an example of something that sort of just jettisoned you into getting more public and doing this commentary? Like what was the dude, or what was the action, the event that took place that sort of just made you say, okay, I got to start talking about this?
No, it was all of them. I was creeping for a lot of 2017 before I started posting, just reading everyone being like, I can't believe this shit. And people were shelling hard at the top. Like the hardest at the top. And that really took me aback because I would have thought it was obvious to everyone else that this is not the time. Like, you don't want to be a part of this. You don't want to be buying right now. This is a sucker's rally. Like, I considered everything from 10K up. 10K was where I was like, fuck this shit. Everything 10K up, I considered a sucker's rally in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, Chris, you were already a public figure with your show. Sort of would seem like there was a transition moment between you doing a little bit more neutral commentary, and then you really got into, okay, this is Chris opining on the state of what's going on and really giving the 2 cents. So what was sort of about what you were seeing at that time that really made you jump into that world?
I didn't understand the news cycle nearly as well as I understand it now. And so I think for me, I thought that the purpose of being on camera was to further the interest of the community. And after a point, I kind of slowly realized that the reason to be on camera is to further the interest of advertisers, principally. And I think when I realized that, there was a degree of cynicism that I eventually ended up having to understand, really. And I don't know that I wanted to acquiesce. Like I was like, you know what? If in fact I am the bad guy for not promoting advertisement interests, I'm okay with that. And so I've given it a try in varying levels of like staying true to that intent of being for the community. And I guess as time's gone on now, you know, I've come to a number of reluctant conclusions about how people work, how money works, to a degree that I think is really very much a part of my message now. And you know, the disgust that Josh may have, I don't know that I exactly share that. I understand 100% how anybody can have that. For me, I think the disgust was probably in sort of like ideological enslavement that a lot of advertising culture seems to probably produce. And that sort of hypocrisy as it relates to what it is we pretend to want, what it is we say we want, and what it is we actually want. And so that now has made it harder for me, I think, to do much in the current cycle. Like everybody's a genius right now, which means that there's no room for improvement. There's only room for waiting, as I've seen it. Peter, you've been taking up the reins. I think that's phenomenal.
I would argue that my view of being disgusted with the way people behave and present themselves in the space is probably more reflective of how the general public would feel if they looked into CT. If they and they saw people saying, everyone's an idiot, how much money do you have in cash? These kind of things that imply that saving and money itself is worth, like these completely, I don't know, far Bitcoin ideas and ideologies. If they looked in on that, they'd be like, wow, I'm really disgusted with these people. They're gross and they're stupid. And I think that I'm trying to represent that view in the space because people are pretty deep in this bubble and in that social bubble. And as you know, the loudest of them have blocked everyone who disagrees with them already. So someone has to be there to be saying, no, this is not the way people think. This is not the way people interact. And this isn't the way the world works. And
I can mention that, yeah.
That's what I mean by disgusting. I mean, the things they say are not cool. It's not cool to tell someone who's like saving up for a house that they're doing the wrong thing.
You should, I mean, as I hear you speak, you should consider that like there's a few different stages of the Bitcoin sales cycle. The conversion of a potential Bitcoiner into a Bitcoiner is one stage in that process. And then the prevention of attrition, the leaving, the immigration of the member of the community, leaving the community, is like a different set of like really morality entirely. And, you know, I think that once you are a Bitcoiner, you seem to lose like normie morality and you say vulgar things, principally out of your own insecurities, it would seem, that probably do reduce the attrition rate of members of the community, but which in my estimation, I would agree with you, absolutely prevent new immigrants from coming across that barrier of conversion into our community. And it is a major tragedy, frankly, that has been permitted to get this far.
Yeah,
that's just.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because there are the political ramifications around Bitcoin in that it's very libertarian oriented, and when you kind of widen the scope to what the problems that the libertarian movement have had, there are some similarities there in that, are Bitcoiners a branch of evolution off of libertarians, or like is there convergent evolution going on where there are these deviants, there are these outcasts that find their way into outlier movements and positions that take up the flag of the outlier and do what they can to keep it the outlier movement. So what ends up happening is, okay, well, we needed these early adopters, and the only early adopters are going to be fanatics and outcasts to some degree. But then once there's actual traction and you start to move into wider and wider penetrations of different markets, you actually have those people try to claw back the movement to stay, I needed to stay in this small pool. So is it that there is a similarity when you look at like the libertarian movement where they have their version of fat, sweaty men that jump up on stage during a primary election and dance to dissuade any normal, operating brain away from them? And just like you see on crypto Twitter, you see people being nasty. You see people saying things like, when the crypto apocalypse happens, we'll have our indentured servants that didn't, buy Bitcoin when the time was right. So when you have these sorts of things, is this an outgrowth of libertarianism, or is this something just unique to crypto?
Who takes that first? Josh, go for it.
You can go ahead.
Well, it seems to me that this is a place where I think the national politics really enters our space. And we're seeing this in a lot of movements online. We see these forms of like untapped emotion, raw emotion out there. It's either like resentment or euphoria or vengeance or any of these things. And that becomes like a form of power in the discourse. So it seems like this sort of freedom, I don't know what really, if there's any ways to describe it, like this sort of pursuit of freedom as the ultimate end that was libertarianism. It got vulgar very quickly. And I think what happens in these moments of euphoria is that people detach from how they actually are in a room full of people. And then they assume what they believe to be the ideal of the group, or they assume some form of like the shaman, I would say, of the group that like channels the spirit. And then in their estimation of what the group is like, they do this performance art, which might be in a fat guy in a bikini at the front of the stage, or maybe like a SJW who's like showing like disgust face or something. I don't know.
An Asian cowboy.
Or an Asian cowboy. Yeah. I mean, it does tend to, in this space at least, attract those with the most confidence. So in a lot of ways, like the game that is played in the public is to present confidence in some like abject and indiscriminate capacity. It's always a performance, though, for the members of the group. It's never something that they have a consideration of the outsiders looking in. And so that's one of the reasons why it gets completely perverse and strange. The libertarians are kind of mostly gone, or if they're here, it seems that they're mostly into like BCH or maybe Dash, although a lot of them are kind of gone. But then again, that's kind of the national trend. I think a lot of libertarian platform has been declining as well. This gets into the nature of maybe what the underlying real and actual belief of Bitcoin is, which has been number go up now. I mean, that is like the mission statement of Bitcoin is number go up. And so if number go up is the purpose, then anything you think is relevant outside of that very quickly becomes immoralized. So like libertarianism gets pushed aside because all it can do is detract, in the mind of the believer from the number go up ethos. And so I think the libertarians are on their way out. But who knows? It may rally. It may come back. We'll see.
Interesting point. Josh, what do you think?
So for my take on this, I would say that the attitudes themselves aren't fed directly from politics, but are more indicative of the actual times that we're in currently. But Bitcoin now is more right than it is libertarian as far as how it presents itself. With the exception of taxes, everything else is right. It's all right. That's it. And I don't think politics has a strong place in whether it's libertarianism or being right or left. I don't think it has a very strong place in Bitcoin, in having a cash that's available outside of the government's reach, having a means to send something to another person. I don't think it has a lot to do with that, personally. I think people try and relate it to that a lot for their own reasons, but I don't really see the connection. And I think that the only similarity between what you were talking about, libertarian candidates, and the Bitcoiners online is the lack of self-awareness. That's the only, they go on stage, they go on Twitter, they have no idea what they're doing. I say fucking horrific things too, but I'm well aware I'm doing it.
This might bring us to an interesting tangent with what Chris often talks about is stupid privilege. And Chris, why don't you just jump into defining what that is?
Stupid privilege is not necessarily a new thing, but it is the privilege that society affords the individual who is the ignoramus. There's a notion of like free will that we all know is tenuous. It may very well be the case that humans have it, but it seems rather certainly the case that the ignoramus does not have it. And so we afford special privileges to those who don't have it in a form of like, it generally with a form of pity, but I think that in the modern era, it's kind of just become this carte blanche of like superiority, which I think is maligned. And I think it's very dubiously in the public interest. A lot of this, I think, kind of comes from like PC culture, where if someone's thought to be like inferior, I guess, they then have permission to be acting in a superior capacity, which I see this in varying ways. I resent it, and if I had to be clear, but if that's the interface, if that's the way society is now designed, then that's the optimal approach to resolving any number of like group contentions. And you see this in the national politics as well. I think that, a lot of the people who, when you see somebody say, the president of the United States is stupid, or the senator is stupid, or the congressman is stupid, not getting into any details of which one they are. Let it be any of the past 50 or so that we've had. In many ways, like what that tells me is that actor that is, the congressman or the president is succeeding in this capacity in all likelihood. Maybe not past 50, but like at least in the past few years, and more certainly depending on the community. And so I see that a lot here, and I think a lot of that permission in our community is probably a remnant of like the anarchy that we seem to think that everybody wants. And so I don't know. I prefer, at least at this point, the strong-willed individual who says, I have these credentials, I have this rank, I see this much, and thus I am overruling the ignoramus. That's what I prefer, but I rarely see that happen.
Yeah. So Josh, do you see sort of the stupid people that are out there? They're almost getting a vicious feedback loop where the stupider they are, and the more that they say stupid things on Twitter, the more the attention comes to them, and the more that they're actually supported, and they have this privilege.
Absolutely, without a doubt. It's a positive feedback loop, and I've said this many times on TV. All people want to hear is what they want to hear, and oftentimes they want to hear some really dumb shit.
If I could add to that,
whoever's dishing it out to them, I'm not gonna name names yet. Maybe after this drink, but whoever's dishing out to them, they're gonna listen. Whoever's telling them what they want to hear, I'm always gonna, if I'm advising anyone, and I'm sure both of you do too. I get unsolicited DMs a lot asking me my opinion on investments and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I never tell anyone anything other than don't invest in anything you're not willing to lose. entirely. And that's good generally, you know? But these people are, everyone, I think it was Trolley who said a couple weeks ago, everyone thinks they're holding the winning lottery ticket. Imagine everyone thinking they're holding the winning ticket. That's Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would add to that, Josh, that you haven't noticed. Yeah, well, a lot of the people that have the loudest, like, ignorant opinions are cartoon characters, literally. They present on Twitter as some cartoon, and they make these brash statements that are wholly decoupled from any real-world consideration. For me, I think one of the biggest disappointments I've had is watching people of great competence, and I'll just say even core devs at the top of that list, favor the outlandish ignoramuses on Twitter over greater sense. And that, to me, seems to have created a big part of the feedback loop as well. And that's been very unfortunate to watch, I think.
The feedback loop is very real. You can see it each day on Twitter. You can see that if someone says something bullish, makes up a fake story that's bullish about adoption, you know, says, oh, this did that, that never does this shit, fucking, it goes viral. And anyone saying anything with any ounce of reasoning or any nuance in it is completely lost to the winds. That's garbage. Who gives a shit about nuance? Who gives a shit about caution? Nobody. I don't. I'm ready to buy. What are you selling me? Come on.
Yeah, and it is interesting. Go on, Chris.
Sorry. No, I would just say that, like, a lot of this too is like Twitter's fault, sort of, but not really. Like Twitter does create echo chambers out of this stuff. And it seems like the confident are the ones that are often retweeted and liked. I mean, you can see this in our Bitcoin as well. So, like, Reddit's not necessarily without some shared responsibility, sort of. Well, these are confidence games in many ways. So, like, people come to receive confidence. They go onto the social media network because they're lacking in confidence, and then receiving affirmation, they perpetuate the next cycle of the feedback loop, and it kind of perpetuates. And it's very evident to me that that's what's going on. I think it's increasingly evident to others. But the problem with pursuing confidence is, number one, that we elect, like, Dunning-Kruger cases, which, for anybody who doesn't know, should look into Dunning-Kruger. It's a very important understanding. But those people are the ones who get the microphone. And again, for me, that's very much because advertisers make money off of this. So it seems to me that what's happening is the advertisers, in many ways, are encouraging our community craziness to shill, you know, their own products on Twitter or Reddit, and then incidentally, you know, like all the ICOs and tokens and these types of things from within our own community as well.
I think Reddit's a lot worse. I think that on Reddit, the ability to censor is given to the mods of each subreddit, and that translates over into Twitter. I think Reddit feeds into Twitter echo chambers.
Yeah, and
That's
it is
probably
interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is interesting that in a space where the word borderless, permissionless, global comes up quite a bit, that, you know, the tribalism kind of got off with a bang and seemed like so easily that started to form. And as you talked about with the Reddit moderators, you know, sort of these leaders started to emerge in various functions, but we didn't want to describe them as such. And there started to be cleavages. And then even, as Chris mentioned, with just how the design of Twitter is, the action of blocking became such of a visceral thing from each party. One that said, I can't take any wrong think that is coming into my worldview, and so I will block this person. And then on the other end of that, the person that was blocked was almost using this as a badge of honor to say, oh, look, I was so provocative and I was so speaking truth to power that I was, you know, in a sense, crucified on Twitter's, you know, block post. So you have these things swirling so that these echo chambers get more and more secluded. And then you have the various private chat rooms and telegrams and Reddit threads and everything. And so we wound up in this world of a feedback loop that is getting more and more concentrated and more devoid of actual reality and functional criticism. So, is there a way around that? Is there a way that this can kind of be mitigated, or will these tribes just have to go into bigger conflict until one is gone and one is left?
Who goes first?
You do.
Let's take this one, Josh. I did the last one. You do it, Josh. You do this. Let's hear your theory.
I was half paying attention. I was answering questions. So
I'll take it first then. Okay, so the question roughly is like, how do we reverse the trend?
Context clues where we are.
Yeah. So I mean, the question is, how do we reverse this trend of echo chambers? And I mean, yeah. So it seems to me that like these sort of like Ponzi-esque behaviors like can be like very bullish indicators in some ways. Like it doesn't have to be bad to see them. In fact, it can be even very affirmational. However, there is implicit stopgaps that will eventually kick in the larger economy. So like you had the Albanian Ponzi schemes of like 1997 or something. I forget that off the top of my head. There was a time when I knew that history well. Wherein Ponzi schemes quite literally caused the destruction of the entire country as more and more people from the country got on board, including politicians, and then like the national program started to suit abject Ponzi schemes. They eventually went bust. The country, they had major repercussions. It was a very funny story, even in hindsight, not being a citizen of that country. So like, I don't see why that couldn't happen with Bitcoin and blockchain. It is entirely conceivable that the entire country, the United States, joins in on these schemes, and the confidence chambers grow and grow and grow and grow unmitigated. So I don't think that even within the community, there's much we can really do at this point, save for one of two things. The leaders, the actual leaders, the people who lead the community with abject 100% certainty, as I see it, and almost anybody else who is not in a group of people will also see it. Those people need to say, this is our identity. The function, or at least one primary function of a leader, is to define reality. That is what they are supposed to do. You have this murky map of like the surrounding medium, and the leader says, well, here is where we are, this is the map, and this is where we're going. And anything that's not part of that isn't part of us. And so that's one way we could see that rescind. I don't think that'll happen in Bitcoin Core. We saw that happen with Roger Ver, to his credit. And it didn't really go very well, unfortunately, because in my estimation, number one, he didn't own the ticker symbol, which is roughly the prerogative of the exchanges. But then number two as well, he didn't have the maintainership of the official Bitcoin repo. So he was not the official leader. Now, what happens with BCH from here, it remains to be seen. Obviously, it could be the case that it goes defunct, or it could also be the case that Bitcoin Core goes defunct, in which case BCH takes the reins. Or both of them exist next to each other. Also A-OK. That's one thing. The second thing that could happen that I actually think is far more likely is that the U.S. government's going to say, no, we're not going to have a civil war in this country over crypto, and we are restricting liquidity to these markets in such and such a capacity, at which time all of the confidence will turn to fear. And just as soon as you saw everybody having always believed in some superstitious belief that showed up yesterday, they will have also always believed Bitcoin was a scam and have vacated the premise. Which, by the way, I don't even think is like necessarily doomed for Bitcoin. We can get into that, but it does mean that the market would shrink and the spirit would change dramatically. It would thus, presumably, holding more people accountable for like community nonsense. That's my theory.
I would say we've already seen that last year and this year with people who were incredibly bullish the year before becoming more skeptical, or people that were shitcoiners becoming maximalists. I would say we've already seen that, where people will shift their personality to whatever the fuck suits them.
And they'll compete on how long they've been this new personality. That's the funny part. You'll see the exact same people change their entire identity and then tell everybody how long they've believed the new thing that everybody has now believed, which I think is just one of the funniest things. So that's a human thing, and it's whatever.
I think
but,
it is.
You think it is or is not?
But no, I think it is. I think the base of this is the only way to combat these echo chambers is to try and create a bigger echo chamber. You got to try and cut into their echo chamber. Like, their echo chambers are so big that they encapsulate a lot more people than anyone in this chat. All of us. And the people we're talking about. And the only way to cut into that is to be loud. You gotta fight. I hate to be a fucking, Old Testament motherfucker, but you gotta fight fire with fire. You gotta take an eye for an eye.
I agree.
And
Yes, here.
If you're not gonna be loud, then you're not gonna be heard, because they are being absolutely loud. And someone needs to say the other thing and the other side and the more rational side of it, in my opinion, a little louder and in a way that's a little more clever, to try and get the attention of people that are smart enough to listen.
I agree with that. I'm a little bearish on that working, but I will say that my solution very specifically to a lot of these problems is down that path, which has been indexing. I'm very big into indexing for a number of reasons, not least of which is that the size of the indexing community should be larger than the size of the Bitcoin community. And we can talk about that if you are at all compelled by the indexing pitch or the indexing ethos. That has been my relatively recent solution, and I don't know if it'll work or not. But I also don't care, because it kind of doesn't have to work for everybody in order for it to work for me. So I also don't really care, which might make it self-defeating.
By the indexing solution, to be honest.
That's fine. Well, like I said, it's not. I don't know that it's going to work for everybody. The math seems pretty solid. I will say that. If you do the math,
I think it's a lot more organic than that. I think it's who's the loudest shouting monkey.
Then if that's true, then the most outrageous person would likely win. Would be my guess, given A, the propensity of human psychology, but B, the social media network standpoint.
Right. So we can look at crypto Twitter and look at who has the most followers, and I think all three of us know who that is, and everyone who's watching this knows too.
And on that note, we will be right back after one short break. All right, we're back, and Josh was just opining about echo chambers and how perhaps the only way to solve the echo chamber problem of crypto Twitter is to have a bigger echo chamber that creates nowhere to run but within it. So with that being said, Chris, why don't you give us your response?
That's a fine strategy. Yeah, I've liked the idea of coalescing everybody into a bracket. I understand why the bracket I've picked has not been appealing to a lot of people. In my estimation, indexing is like actual number go up theology, maybe is the right word there. But there's a degree of passion that lies at the heart of a lot of this. And I think also like the nature of the indexing pitch might be more marginal return than it is like bonanza return. And so that isn't as outlandish as you would generally want to target for like a larger echo chamber. But I will say that we may be on the cusp of an economic downturn. And if so, there may be a huge potential there for people who are scared and who are looking for this product. And that might be the form of echo chamber that could be leveraged. Whether the question with a lot of these outrage-based initiatives is like, do you want to be that guy? And it's not that it's a bad guy to be, but there are costs associated to it. So like you look at guys like Peter Schiff, and his entire life, his social network, his opportunities in the future are effectively gambled on this presentation. And if it goes solid, then he's mooning. But if for reasons outside of his control, it doesn't, then he pays a steeper penalty, perhaps. So we'll see if there's something like that. Right now, it seems like the most outlandish thing you can do is show your commitment, is to be like the patron, like martyr, basically, of the community, where you're the guy who sells everything and lives in the RV for the Bitcoin cause. That seems to have attracted the kinds of people thus far who are the maximalists, who are already prone to like the most egregious forms of outrage or atypical and extreme behavior in the Bitcoin community, seemingly.
I'm on a similar platform as you there. I think that most of the people that are the loudest are the ones that have the most to gain from it. I think this is a very dangerous time to be bullish in any market. Whether it's the stock market, Forex, crypto, I don't consider Bitcoin, BTC, fucking crypto, any of that shit to be a safe haven to what's about to come. None of it's been tested as a safe haven asset. And I think it's very foolish that people are portraying it as a safe haven asset, as an escape to equity for something that's extremely volatile. And I just have a complete mental disconnect from that. But to get back to your question, Peter, I think that absolutely. I think what I was saying, the people that are telling people what they want to hear the loudest are the ones that are heard the most. And I think the only way to break that is to be a little louder than them in a different way. And I don't think there's any other way around that. I think you've got to speak your truth, you know? Fucking hate to say that. It's so fucking lame. But you got to say what you think it's going to be. You got to say what it's going to think it's going to be. You got to tell people that do what you want to do, but don't do anything you're not prepared for. Because the people in the space that are the loudest are telling people, you're all going to win. It's all going to be okay. It's all good. Just fucking buy my investment. That's the primary. Fucking, I have Bitcoin. I have a couple other shits. Fucking, you know what? I don't give a shit if you buy it. I don't give a shit if I lose everything. I don't care about any of that. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's the message. Do what you want to do. Let the fucking market win.
Yes, and I think, all these problems kind of come down to the fact that there are these leaders, and there's a failure of people to maybe be held accountable, so that, you have people running around, they're creating the echo chambers, they're leading the echo chambers, yet they have this cop-out that Bitcoin is leaderless, Bitcoin is decentralized, and thus they can't be, they can't be at fault. They can't be, I'm not the snake oil salesman because Bitcoin's not a company, because I'm not employed by, the Bitcoin, CEO, whoever that might be. So there's this lack of accountability, and they get to just kind of go on and on and on, keeping the echo chamber alive. So now we talked about leaders, and I think it's good to maybe get the microscope out and maybe look at one individual. So I'm in a very timely fashion here. I'm going to jump over to actually just this very night, and this is full circle of the whole conversation, at the New York City Soho Forum debate series, which is a libertarian-oriented, intellectual, sort of live debates where a lot of people like Peter Schiff, for example, or other notable figures in that movement, as well as people that are maybe oriented towards the left, come and debate a lot of these subjects. Tonight's debate was with Safedine Ammous and George Selgin debating, is Bitcoin good for countries to use as a medium of exchange and a money? So I have the results of that debate and who won. They do it by changing the most minds pre-debate versus post-debate. And do you guys have a guess of who won?
Yeah, I
Chris,
do.
yeah. Who do you guys
I would not. I didn't know this was going on tonight. I saw this was on the banner. Is this Intelligence Squared? Is that what this was?
No, if you know Gene Epstein, he's the leader, the grand poobah of the Soho Forum, and Naomi Brockwell actually has a hand in it as well.
Okay.
They run these. Eric Voorhees did one.
Okay. Savendine's also on. I think he's scheduled to be at Intelligence Squared, which is a big type of venue with one of these formats. I've never been impressed with Saifedean. I would have thought he would have lost, but if he's preaching to the choir, he's always going to win. So it depends on who the demographic is in attendance. And if it was the Intelligence Squared debate, I would have said he would have lost. But
Okay.
I don't know that. Yeah, I know this audience, but it would entirely depend on that. I would assume, even though they're doing it based on the delta. I don't know. So I don't know. I'd be curious. I don't know that I have it yet.
Because yes, Seljan is a Cato guy, and he's argued for certain things like that. So not exactly an outsider. Josh, who do you think won?
So this is pretty clear to me. Safedine won.
Well, yeah. Before you tell us, can I just suggest that if there were Bitcoiners in attendance, they would knowingly game the system. They would say at the start of it, they would already have their planned vote in. So they would just say, like, I'm skeptical, just to pad the investment, basically, and ensure their success.
Assuming I don't know what the fuck I'm saying before going into this answer. Safedine won.
Okay, so
All
let's
right.
hear it.
And the results. Saifedean won. He changed 22% of the votes versus George Seljan, who only changed 6%.
That would suggest to me that there's probably a lot of already converted Bitcoiners in attendance, is my suspicion. Could be wrong. I don't know, but that's my guess.
Yeah. So it's possible, like you said, that there was a gaming, because it wasn't who had the majority. It was who had the biggest delta from start to finish. So if people knowingly went in and voted the other way, which I'm sure there were our Bitcoin bros that we all know and love that were in attendance there. But so now that we know that Saifedean, using him as a test subject, he's a leader. He's a big blocker in the Twitter sense. Yeah, and he went out to what you could describe as.
When you say big blocker,
sure.
You mean he blocks a lot of people, right?
Yes.
Is there any other kinds?
No.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
Also, he is a Bcasher, one who says Bcash.
Yes.
So
I say gash, as you know.
Yes. You are a gash maximalist. So Saifedean went out to what we could say is, they were libertarian minded, but to the public, he went out with his soapbox and gave the Bitcoin sermon, and he won. So is there something about the Saifedean approach that maybe is ultimately that is the place where the ball is rolling? That's the center of gravity, or
do we know how many people voted on this?
I don't have the raw vote count. I just have the percentages.
So we don't know the end.
I'm going to say that there was probably like 100 to 200 people in attendance.
Cool. I'm going to completely dismiss it entirely.
I would just say that, Saifedean's like this Jerry Falwell kind of guy in my mind, and he's not, how to put it? I mean, he's the guy that goes out there and says this product is gold, and that's this deal, and that's what people want to hear. But there's nothing about Bitcoin that is gold. The gold is a commodity. It has 79 protons in its nucleus. The only reason Bitcoin is gold is because gold is perceived as the best. So why wouldn't Bitcoin be the best? And so then he starts with that premise, and then he creates this lineage of Bitcoin myth from there. So the reality that he constructs, here's the thing: the job of the leader, in many ways, is to decide what reality will be. And if you don't have an officially elected leader, then the mob will choose whatever person offers the most charisma. And so Saifedean does develop that. He provides a future that is so rosy and is so perfect and so in accordance with the ideals and hopes of the crowd that he is then propelled onto the stage to reify and affirm the thing that they want to believe. And then they walk away and they congratulate themselves. But that's not based on the shared reality outside of that group. It's not based on, as Josh would say, normies who don't know this. So I'm not really surprised by any of that. It's even okay that he does. Somebody needs to do that, and that's fine. I think for me, the problem I have is that a lot of the choices that he makes does come at consequence to the immigration that might have otherwise happened. So if he did what he did and didn't denigrate anybody who didn't share that worldview in full, that would be awesome. But instead, he's full of disgust and indignance and resentment over anybody who doesn't share this sort of idealist utopian thing that the crowd wants to hear. And for me, it's just very, it's very much a product of the times. These demagogues show up, and that's what they do. And there's nothing you can really do about that. I mean, that is the formula. If we could find something that was like better than gold, like I don't know what that would be. Lambos don't have the same like history and antiquity as gold, so that wouldn't be really eligible. Like utopia. But if we found something like that, that would be the person to beat Saifedean. Somebody who could outdo the idealism of gold. But I think that's just the top. That is, in fact, the apex of our social conditioning. So that move may not be, beatable, basically. I don't know. That helps us here. But that's what I see in Saifedean.
Peter, do we have any more data on this? How many people attended? Anything?
No. There's a few quotes that I have right here. One from Saifedean is that he said, "You can't conflate the settlement layer with the term," slipping my mind, "second layer," i.e. if you use Visa, PayPal, Venmo, you're using a second layer, and the banks settle at the end of the week.
Another thing to be said about his platform that is very harmful, I think, is this sort of nullification of the medium of exchange goals. If all this is good for speculating, it's not good for speculating.
Okay, so let's go this direction. Who are each of your favorite circus clowns to pick out and catalog? Josh, you go first.
Favorite circus clowns? Fucking Pomp is at the goddamn top of the list. Oh, for fuck's sake. I mean, that motherfucker, goddamn. Yeah, he's at the top. Saifedean's next. The fact is, if you tell people they're doing things wrong in life, fucking, you fucked up.
As you can't put it any better than that. Short and sweet. Chris, how about you?
Does it have to be limited to Bitcoin? Because like Vitalik, I think, is like amazing as a specimen of circus clownery. Yeah. So Vitalik, that whole thing has been like.
I agree with that too. The thing is that this fucking bullshit, it doesn't maintain to what I think is bullshit. Fucking, I'm being loud at the loudest motherfuckers. Fucking, everyone's being loud. Okay. Yeah, that's my point. God damn.
Why won't you listen to the man? Come on, he's trying to make a point here. Yeah. Next on the list, I would put Justin Sun.
The point is, everyone's loud and dumb.
Josh, what do you think about Justin Sun?
What do I think of Justin Sun?
Yes. Good circus clown?
More JPGs, please. I need more fucking meme material. Gimme.
So yeah, I would say Justin Sun.
In the back.
All he is a meme generator. Fucking.
That's what a circus clown needs to be.
Fucking Justin Sun. You're asking me about Justin Sun. Justin Sun is garbage. Okay, Tron is garbage. Tron is absolute trash. I fucking read the Tron white paper the fucking day it came out. It's garbage. It's
all the more reason he's a great clown. If he can sell trash, then he can sell anything.
Yeah, no, that's not the thing. The thing is that fucking if he's selling his trash to anyone that's actually following me, fuck those people. Fuck them.
All right.
I hope they unfollow. I hope they fucking block. I hope they give up everything about me. Because I fucking was reading the shit he was writing while he was putting it out. And I was posting to zero audience at the time that he was full of shit.
I would lastly nominate, on that note, the undisputed king of clownery, which is /Biz, and their performance with Chainlink has been phenomenal in terms of clownery achievements. I think it's astounding and hilarious. I don't think you take that away from me.
They seem to be the most committed.
You're talking about a completely different subject here, in my opinion.
I agree. That was cheating.
You're talking about meme magic.
Yes. Well, that's what a clown seems to be good at usually.
No.
Honk honk.
Not all clowns. Hashtag
Okay.
not all clowns. The fact is that fucking Chainlink, those fuckers were pushing it from the top at 2017, and the motherfuckers that were holding from then, they were sitting on Biz, right? They deserve whatever the fuck gains they're dumping right now. That's my opinion.
Then
Fucking,
they're successfully clowning.
they held that long. They deserve these gains.
They are the self-aware clowns.
I'm saying they fucking were like, I thought fucking Chainlink was a pile of shit. I still think it does. But the fact is, it's increased in value, okay? So if you made money, you made money. Good on you. Take the money. What's so hard about that?
All right.
In agreement. Yeah, I'm going to nominate. And in the chat, for everyone that's out there watching, please comment or type in or tweet wherever medium that you find the best place that who is your favorite clown of crypto? Please send that. And if you will, tag those people, because that will just generate even greater outcomes.
I like this.
But mine that I will put up, and I'll maybe even classify him as a different species of clown. I will say he's maybe a rodeo clown, in the sense that it's Peter McCormick, and he seems to, when there are bulls going around, he seems to enter the.
Horrible. It's fucking horrible.
Yeah. Well, he enters, and it seems like he walks around as a naive, kind of unbeknownst to him. But then the bulls come and they redirect him and jostle him and put him in the barrel, and then the barrel gets knocked over and he has to change his orientation constantly. So in that sense, he seems to be consistently the best clown.
Can I jostle?
I thought you were going to go with the Asian cowboy. That was my other. If it was Bitcoin clowns, that would have been the Asian cowboy for me.
Oh yeah, he's riding the bull.
Can I jostle him?
He's riding him. Go for it.
All right. He's still following one of my ults from last year.
Okay.
And he's got me blocked.
Yes, I'm a fellow block list from the other Peter.
No, but I'm saying he's fucking got my ult. He's following my ult.
You can't give up all of the carbon.
Right.
Only half of it.
Totally. Who knows what the fuck I'm saying? Because it's like, yeah. Right, gotcha. Totally.
I want to get basically, again, sort of, we went through these topics, we explored a little bit. What are your, things you want to leave the audience with, the state of crypto culture, where it's going, and, how we talk about these solutions. So, Josh, why don't you go first?
Cool. My opinion is do what you want to do.
Okay.
I'll leave it there. Chris, you next.
But I would suggest right now, at this point in 2019, don't get at all distracted by the technicals. I think that is very irrelevant to speculative performance right now. That hen will come home to roost at some point. It'll matter again. But in the meantime, these are mostly memes. As you can tell, Chainlink had a great meme magic going for it, and it performed. So I like indexing, but don't get stuck on any ticker at this point and think that you're going to look at some technical detail and that will be predicted.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to give these guys a follow on Twitter. Chris, I believe you're just at DeRose, and
Yep.
Josh, you are at Carbon Based.
With a K.
With a K. Please follow. like their stuff. You'll definitely in vivid detail their cataloging and commentary on this crypto culture as these events rise in real time. So once again, thank you and good night. All right, we are back. Great interview. We had Josh Davis, Chris DeRose on talking about the crypto culture, and quite a culture it was on that interview. So how about this, guys? We saw what you were chirping in about throughout that interview. It seemed like everyone was jiving what was getting thrown down. I'd like to hear what your feedback is, what you thought. Again, as we mentioned on the interview earlier, go to, do it in the chat, do it in Telegram, do it on Twitter, tag a few people. Who are your favorite crypto clowns? Get that out there. Let's see who we can put in the bracket to win the championship of Ultimate Crypto Clown. I put my top seed out there, Peter McCormick, clown extraordinaire. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Moving on, we have a few more things to tackle, guys. We have Dank Meme of the Week. If you have not submitted, you still have a chance. Go in the chat. You can find the link. Go to Twitter. Go to @CoinSpice. Go to @_Peter Ryan. You can find the tweet. And if you submit in the comments a meme, you have the chance to win the Dank Meme of the Week, which I will be revealing in about 2 minutes. Maybe less than 2 minutes. Hurry. So we got that going on, guys. Moving on, I just want to remind everybody. Oh, no, not that yet. I want to remind everybody that CoinSpice has a brand new Spice letter. This is our weekly newsletter. We release it on Sundays. We have stuff in there that we're not posting on Twitter or on the website. You can only find in the email. So definitely subscribe. Hear from our editor-in-chief, C. Edward Kelso, talking about how, what is his real feeling about what's going on. He reports fantastic news out there and gets to the bottom of things and gives you all the details that you need. But what is Kelso actually thinking? You can find that out in this newsletter. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you can see all the other goodies that we got in there. And keep up with the latest. Anything that we got going on, we're going to include it in that letter. And if you guys do that, and if we hit 100 newsletter subscribers, we will randomly select one subscriber and give a very special BCH reward. So if you do that, guys, if we get to 100, we will open up the reward. We will randomly choose a contestant, and we will disperse a little BCH to them. So everybody get over to CoinSpice, sign up for the newsletter. You can go to coinspice.io/newsletter and get in on that. Please do. Make sure also you follow us on Twitter, Telegram, all that good stuff. We have an Instagram now. All we do is throw memes there. So if you hate me talking, you hate everything else we do, and you just want our memes, go there and follow and like us. So anyway, guys, how are we doing? Have we gotten to all the submissions of Dank Meme of the Week yet? Hope we have, because we're moving over there right now. Coming back at you. Let's see what you guys are talking about in the chat. Let's see what some of the conversation has been about the interview. You got a few more moments, guys. I'm giving you a little elbow room here for the submission. Looks like people were excited about Chris and Josh. People are loving Josh. People are saying Josh had the charisma. People love Chris too, but people are saying there was something special about Josh tonight. All right. So we are moving on. Okay, awesome, guys. Make sure to also tip.cash, tip CoinSpice. Throw a little love. You can shoot up, have a message come above my head, and you can have yourself appear in the leaderboard to the left below the chat. So, guys, here we go. We are moving on. The big reveal, the dank meme of the week. Very exciting. Very exciting. Pulling it up right now, guys. Here we go. All right. Okay, we got Mike. Ooh, throwing a little Max Kaiser. Little Max Kaiser repost. If Satoshi had released Bitcoin 10 years earlier, 9/11 would never have happened. Max Kaiser. So if you do the math, he's saying 2011 Bitcoin would have stopped. You know, I like Bitcoin too, but like, I don't know about that. Moving on, we got Mark Hochstein. Big Mark coming over here. He loved that meme so much, he changed his profile picture to it, guys. Much love to Mark. Wow, I really like the idea of using a blockchain for supply chain management. Very wholesome meme. Very wholesome blockchain meme. We got Ken. Ooh. VeChain. Ooh, Florida license plate. North. This is very. See, this would have been good, but it's even better that it's a Florida man meme. So points there to Ken. Moving down. Ooh, Colin. Ooh, Colin. Types of millionaires. Bcash. Spice. Ooh, I got some goosebumps there. And we got Cornholio the Great. Spice, memeing the new mining. Ooh, I do like that. So we're looking. And, okay, guys, drum roll. The dank meme of the week is Colin Enstead with the types of millionaires, Bcash versus Spice, and Roger Man as the spotlight, compare and contrast. Very, very spicy, very dank, very topical, very mimetic. So, Colin Enstead, dank meme of the week. Top of the leaderboards. He displaced last week's Calvin Tran, who displaced previously Shift Po. So you guys, it's a competitive field. You gotta bring your best. And okay, so we had a great convo tonight. We talked about developer funding, different business models. We talked about what the other coins are doing, how to think about this. Guys, get out there, talk amongst yourselves, Telegrams and Twitter, talking about, hey, how do we solve the development and also just general funding issues surrounding all these decentralized cryptocurrencies? Because we can't be centralized, but we can be coordinated. Secondly, we had a great mempool report with Mike in Space. Make sure to follow him, all his good stuff, as well as great cameos by Vin and our dank meme winner, Colin Enstead. Follow them as well. Make sure to check out Colin's show that he does on DLive. And then we went into sort of the Twitter shenanigans that happened there. We talked about how Saifedean Ammous is talking about, what he thinks is going on with Bitcoin as a settlement layer versus for payments. We looked at how people are talking about funding as well on Twitter, from Peter Woolley to other folks saying, what's really the value here in terms of price connection. And we had that awesome interview with Chris DeRose and Josh Davis. Make sure you follow them at DeRose, at Carbon Based. Give them some love, show them some spice. Everybody loves some spice. And guys, it's that time. And it's really good because we laid out the red carpet. We had to do some hard work. We really had to go out our way to bring him back in because he was a little tricky. So I'm ready to introduce for the first time. Here we go. Mr. Justin. apologies. Justin can't join us tonight because, unfortunately, he overheard the prior conversation of during the interview, and he's too afraid to enter onto the show because he thinks Carbon Based will make fun of him. Okay, so we lost Justin again. Unfortunately, Pox, what do you think about this? Yes, I couldn't say it any better than myself. Unfortunately, we'll have to go another week without Justin. Carbon, you don't have to go after everybody. Good night, everybody.
What? I don't give a shit if you buy it. I don't give a shit if I lose everything. I don't care about any of that. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's the message. Do what you want to do. Let the fucking market win.
In my hand, and I ain't even leave my house with the plan. Baby girl living in, I don't need a man, but I'm a drunk text my ex, I'm better than your new girl. You know that I'm out this world. We're never matter cause I am superb. You heard that I'm styling on these girls. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty, but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Can we do it again? Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty, but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. And I don't know if they told you, but there's nothing you can say to make me feel the type of way. I'm pretty, I'm smart, I got my pay. So baby, I own my mess, so I ain't got dirt. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. In my hand, and I ain't even leave my house with the plan. Baby girl living in, I don't need a man, but I'm a drunk text my ex, I'm better than your new girl. You know that I'm out this world. We're never matter cause I am superb. You heard that I'm styling on these girls. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. So go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Go tell your boy cause he needs the alert. Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Wanna step to me, better think twice. Cause I look pretty but I'm not that nice. You might wanna wash me down with that water. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy. Spicy, get spicy, get spicy. Spicy, get spicy. Because I'm spicy.
What? I don't give a shit if you buy it. I don't give a shit if I lose everything. I don't care about any of that. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's the message. Do what you want to do. Let the fucking market win.